Hey sketchy friends, so here we are, episode 6, the final episode, and we just need to fill up this right hand corner here. So I don't know if you remember, but in I think episode 3, when I drew the kind of gingerbread looking house in the bottom left, I also put a bit of a frame, pencil frame in the top right corner because I just felt like I wanted to balance the spread maybe with another sketch in a frame. So I just put those lines there just to remind me that that's possibly what I wanted to do. I just thought it would look good that way. And for this particular area, I've decided to do a close-up, like a zoom in of a particular detail. And it does happen to be Casa Batlo, which is the dragon house, which is the sketch in the bottom right-hand corner. It's a close-up of the window from that particular building, which is extremely iconic and probably most people recognize. So I thought it'd be nice just to do a bit more of a detailed sketch. As such, it's a little tighter, less loose, and I'm doing my usual where I've just got my pencil. I'm just trying to get the basic shapes in, just so I've got the rough idea of the shape of the windows. It's not exactly right, but it's good enough to portray the subject matter, and that's fine for me. So yeah, obviously I've sped this up. I don't draw this quickly, but it's just so that you guys can get the idea of what kind of basic pencil shapes and lines and divisions that I would put in to set myself up to do a nice detailed ink sketch on top of this. So you can find the reference photo along with all the other reference photos over on my website, urbansketchingworld.com. I am moving on to the ink now. I did think I was going to use a 0.1, but I've put that down to the side. I'm actually going to use a 0.2. I think I actually prefer just drawing with a 0.2, and if there's any super delicate details that I want to put in, then maybe I'll switch to the 0.1, but 0.2, 0.3 are kind of actually my preferred line weights, I think. This will always be a personal thing, so you can get these fine liners in a pack of different sizes. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, 0.8 are the most common sort of ones you see in the packs. There's also 0.05, which is super fine, and then I think there's even 0.03 as well, which is even finer, which I can't even imagine drawing with, to be honest with you. But yeah, 0.2, 0.3 kind of my preferred line widths. These fine liners happen to be uni pins, but any of them that have waterproof ink in are absolutely fine. They will do the same job. So yeah, I'm definitely being a little tighter with this sketch or illustration or whatever you want to call it, compared with maybe the last two, which was the sketch in the top left corner and then the one right in the middle, the Sagrada Familia. I felt like those scenes lent themselves to being looser. Whereas I feel like this one lends itself to being a bit more controlled. It's a zoom in of an architectural detail. It's got more kind of detail going on. Yeah, it's just lends itself to kind of drawing this way. So I very much seem to, and not consciously really, but I seem to adjust my drawing style depending on what I am actually drawing. That just seems to happen naturally. If I'm drawing complex architecture, it just seems much easier to me to try and be looser and just try and indicate the details. But when I'm doing something zoomed in like this, where I can quite clearly see the details, then I feel like I can draw it more cleanly and more graphically, and that's equally as pleasing to me. So, there's kind of no right or wrong, just go with what you feel, really. And again, I am simplifying a few bits and bobs, and I think there's certain bits that I've possibly missed or not drawn quite right, but I promise you, as soon as you let go of agonizing over what you may have drawn incorrectly, then you'll have a much better time, because overall it still reads as exactly what it's supposed to be. And, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter whether you drew one of the poles in front of the windows slightly fatter than the other ones, for example. But getting things like the interior of the window frames and showing there's a bit of thickness there, that really helps, just to indicate some depth and that kind of thing. So I have now switched to the 0.1 just because I wanted to do the window details in a slightly finer line. It's probably negligible really, but the thicker lines for the details in front will really bring them forward, and the details that are further at the back, such as the windows in the 0.1, it will just push it back slightly. And it's very subtle, but that kind of differentiation is a nice thing to do. And again, at the bottom, I haven't got the ovals quite in the right place. So I think I rushed into it without sort of properly looking at it. So that didn't go quite right. But again, it's like such a minor detail. It's really not important. And you can see that I've sort of stopped drawing where the kind of sky around the Sagrada Familia is, so that all the sketches kind of just blend into one another really. And now I'm just putting in the details on the windows, the top half of the windows. Again, massively simplifying it, to be honest. But as long as there's some kind of round patterns going on there, then it gives the impression. Okay, so I'm just tilting my page here. I've got a pen with a much thicker line just to put that frame around. And I wasn't quite sure how far to bring it out, but I decided that I would bring it out right into almost the middle crease of the page. So then I thought, let me just carry on drawing some more information in this corner. Again, just really simplifying what's there, but just so it fills up the frame a bit better. And I think that was the right decision. I'm quite happy with that decision. Otherwise, I think there might have been a bit of an awkward white gap there. So yeah, I thought about it for a moment and I went for it. And I think it looks quite cool because now all of the space is filled up. So my thoughts of putting lettering up there have definitely disappeared now, but I do have a plan. So please stick around until the end of the video because I shall show you that plan. So here I'm just using a grey kneadable eraser, one of those putty erasers, just to kind of get rid of some of the obvious graphite marks. I like to use the kneadable erasers because they don't damage the paper so much. And this is just a little fun tin, an old tin, probably from the 70s, that I've just put some of my random pans of paint that are lying around in. But I'm particularly picking this one up because I've got buff titanium in it. And this is actually a colour that was handmade by a friend of mine, Margaret, who is in Urban Sketches Johannesburg here. Looking at the photo, I was like, for me, buff titanium naturally is going to be a great colour just to paint this scene in, and I've got it to hand, so that's fine. If I was out travel sketching and I didn't have this particular colour, then I would try and mix something similar. But yeah, I happen to have this to hand, so I thought, let me just use that. I am using my number 10 round brush for this. I was going to use a smaller brush, but then I realised the area that I need to cover is quite large actually, and I think I can be controlled enough to keep the watercolour from going everywhere, because again, in this particular sketch I'm being a little bit more careful. I'm not being as loose. I want to just be a little more controlled in this one, and I am dabbing little bits of Payne's grey in here and there because, you know, the wall isn't all one colour. It has got sort of marks and sort of stains from probably pollution or whatever over the years. So, you know, it's not a perfect, smooth, like beige kind of colour. It's got like dirt and it's time worn basically. So I've now switched to my Rosemary & Co dagger brush because now I really want to start getting a bit more into the details. Now I've got the base colour down. I am putting some more Payne's grey over the top. Again, I do want it to kind of look worn, and I'm trying to get the effect that I'm seeing on the photograph. And then I'm getting even more pigment on my brush and just putting in these really dark shadow areas in the building at the bottom here, which I'm more than likely will adjust later on, but I just want to get those kind of shapes in initially. And now I'm switching to my cerulean blue, and I know I'm using paint from all different sets going on here, but it's just because of what I have to hand. But yeah, I'm using the cerulean blue for the windows, so just sort of ignoring any other colours on the window pane and just painting them all this same colour just as a base, and then I can come over the top to add any other colours or details into those areas. But it helps just to get that base colour down. And I've waited for that to dry because, you know, now I am painting in areas that are right next to the windows. So you do want to just make sure that is dry before you paint near or on top of those areas. Otherwise your paint's going to seep into each other and make a mess. I am using just a colour called green, and this is from Rosa watercolours. So they are my new watercolours. I keep threatening to do a video about them. I am going to do it. Please watch this space. But yeah, I've recently switched from the paints I was using to trying out these Rosa paints. And one of the big draws for me was the fact that this green is very, very similar, if not the same, to the green that I use in the White Knight set, which is basically hands down my favourite colour, and I find it extremely useful. And I just can't seem to find that green in other brands, you know, Daniel Smith, Winsor & Newton, any other brand. But Rosa do have this colour and it's really similar, so I'm very happy about that. So that was one of the main draws. The other main draw was the price, really. I'm not going to lie. They are significantly cheaper than brands like Daniel Smith and stuff, which I am willing to pay for it. Don't think, you know, that I'm tight or anything. I am willing to pay for Daniel Smith and stuff, but I don't know. I always like to just go for something that's a little bit different. I'm like, everyone uses Daniel Smith. I want to use something different. But I'm just pointing out the price is very attractive. So you can most definitely get these paints from Jackson's. And I know my friend in Australia said that her local art shop also carries them. So I think you can get them all over the place. But I'll do a proper review at some stage in the next few weeks. Here I'm using Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens, which are literally my favourite thing to use in conjunction with watercolour. You've probably heard me talk about them loads in the past because I love them. I've got the shades of 6, so I've got 3 warm greys, 3 cold greys, light, medium and dark colours. And they're just brilliant just to add in details over the top of watercolour, to add in any little shadow details underneath window ledges. They're just like really convenient, and you can get, you know, be quite controlled with them more so than you might be able to with a brush. So these kind of little shadow areas that the trees are casting on the windows, you can do that really nicely with these Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens. I really love them. I'm just adjusting the colour of the top half of the windows to a bit of a cobalt blue, just to give a bit of differentiation between the window panes below. And yeah, I'm just going around with that light grey really, and just adding in a bit more interest to the wall, some lighter shadows, that kind of thing. You can really build up some nice depth with these pens on top of the watercolour. It's my kind of cheat code. I really love them, so do check those out. I'll put a link to them in the description below. And they're India ink, so they're not alcohol based, so they won't soak through the page, and they're transparent and translucent, so they kind of layer up quite nicely. Okay, so the last part of this is adding some lettering, which I've been threatening to do this whole time. But this kind of space at the bottom of the spread kind of cried out to me for some lettering. And I'm kind of like thinking of someone like Pat Southern Pierce, where she would use whatever space is available and make her letters fill that space. That's who I was thinking of when I drew the Gaudi in that space. And you might find it a bit strange. I'm actually working backwards. So I drew the word Gaudi and then of, and then architecture. Then I drew the word the, and it was like 2 spaced apart. So I actually started with the end of the word. So I actually drew the E first, then the H, then the T, to make sure the spacing between the and architecture was how I wanted it to be. So when you're drawing lettering, don't think of it as writing, think of it as drawing still. I do hear that advice a lot, and I do think it's extremely valid. Think of it as you're still drawing something, and that should help you break out of the conventions of thinking of handwriting or that kind of thing. So this is just a Tombow Fude pen, nothing particularly special. It just produces a nice thick black line. So that was just the pen I decided to go with. So guys, this is our finished spread. We made it to the end. I know quite a few of you are following along, so I hope you're excited to finish this spread finally. It's been really fun, and this has turned out actually way better than I thought it was going to turn out, so I'm really happy with it. And I hope you guys have learned a lot from this. Please do consider checking out my book, The Beginner's Guide to Urban Sketches. It's in all major bookstores and you can get it online. And, you know, come and check out my online course, Sketchy Adventures, especially if you're a beginner, but also if you're intermediate. I'm sure you can pick up a lot of good information there. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in a future video.